Good morning.
HealthyU on KMEM on Tuesday morning at 10
o'clock, yes. After New Year's, we're all recovering here, and we have an amazing guest today.
And how did you find this guest,
goodness.
Dr. Helene?
Donna Gould is just an amazing media lady that connects me to these books that are so right on point for the time of year that we need it. She called me in December and said, Helene, I've got this great book. And I didn't get it till recently how great a book this is. The book's called The 30-Day Sobriety Solution, How to Quit or Cut Back Drinking in the Privacy of Your Own Home. And I've gone through this book a little bit, and I have to say a little bit about there's two authors, but the author, there's a Jack Canfield and a Dave Andrews, and Dave Andrews is the nationally acclaimed, and he speaks internationally too, sobriety coach and speaker, and he's a recovering alcoholic who's been sober for 8 years, one of the world's leading experts in helping others recover, reclaim, and reinvent their lives without alcohol. He's been featured on more than 50 national and international talk shows, served on the board of directors of the nonprofit organizations Young People in Recovery and Advocates for Recovery, and is CEO of the 30-Day Solution. He lives in Denver, Colorado with his wife and 2 daughters.
What a great show for the first
my gosh.
show after the
Couldn't be better.
The first of the year. I know there are lots of people out there.
And the thing about
struggling.
Problems with alcohol, it's a quiet thing. People aren't going to wave a flag and say, I've got a problem. Or they're not going to wave a flag and say, my spouse or my dad or my kid has a problem. And to get a show like this where we could talk about it, it's privately, we could all talk to each other like we're talking across the table on the radio about things you can do, simple things, rethink things. And that's what this show's about.
You bet. So we have Dave Andrews on the line. And where are you calling in from this morning, Dave?
I'm calling in from Denver, Colorado. And just to let you know, I can barely hear Helene, I think that's her name, right?
Okay,
And,
yes,
so
I'll talk. How's this better?
I'm calling from Denver, and I'm excited to have you on the show, so thank you so much.
Great. Okay, well, you have to tell me, how did this all come about? How did the 30-Day Sobriety Solution book come about, and your partnership with Jack Canfield? And tell us a little bit about Jack Canfield, too.
Yeah, all of it's a really great story, and some of it's not so great, I guess, depending on your perspective. But I'm here today, which is wonderful. So
good things come out of bad things.
Out of almost a necessity. I followed a very, very normal path, so to say, for people that struggle with alcohol addiction, down over, of course, the 15, 18 years, where the last 8 years I struggled mightily to quit drinking and was looking for solutions and looking for answers and wasn't able to find anything that worked for me. And I always considered Alcoholics Anonymous and rehab like the last resort, very too public for me and too big of a concern. But finally, that last resort became pretty much my only resort. I was coming to the end of my marriage, where I wasn't going to continue past it if drinking was going to exist, and there are other challenges. And I knew I wanted to change. So what happened was I got sober. I went to AA. It wasn't easy, and I did manage to get 8 months sobriety. And I did that by just sheer willpower, white-knuckling it. I was the bag boy for my AA meetings. I went to all these AA meetings. I had 2 different sponsors. I worked the steps twice. And
oh, my goodness.
And so 8 months passed, and something happened that changed everything forever. And that was a friend of mine emailed me and shared another friend of mine who I had looked up to, a mentor, had relapsed, and he took his life with a shotgun.
Oh.
And he was about probably 8 or 9 months ahead of me in sobriety, and someone that was a brain surgeon, this really amazing, charismatic guy, and he had 2 kids the same age as my 2 kids, and so he was kind of a mentor to me, and I went to his funeral. There were 500 people there, and I looked into the eyes of his kids and his wife, and I knew at that moment that was going to be me. I just, it was as sure as anything. I knew that if something didn't change, I was that close to relapsing after 8 months of all the work I did.
Oh, my goodness.
And I realized some changes had happened. So I was listening to Tony Robbins' Personal Power 2, again, it's the 5th time. I've been listening to that kind of stuff since I was a teenager and used it in my career to be very successful in my career. And I asked an important question that time. I said, why isn't this taught in anything anything in recovery that I've been exposed to? And I tried a lot of stuff, and that sent me down this whole path. So I actually said, I'm going to just do it myself and see what happens. And so I started researching and writing all this in myself and practicing it myself, and my life changed dramatically. It was like night and day. How different I was, how healthier I got, how in shape, how I looked, how I felt, and then I started saying, I'll share this with other people online. So I started doing that, and I got other more amazing feedback. And eventually, I met Jack through this process, and he was passionate about it because he taught the same things that I was teaching to people in recovery. He has 9 family members in the past in various stages of recovery, and he supported me. And then I ended up launching the program online in 2010. 3 of the 4 people that first got the program are in the book today as success stories, which was baffling to me. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I knew it worked, but the universe kept saying this needs to be out there. And these are people that failed in AA and rehab. One of them was even crazier yet. He was in Barcelona, and he got a real discounted price because it was when I launched it. And he actually 2 months later sent me a check for the difference. And I can't take any discount because this has been so life changing. And
wow.
Those are the kind of experiences I had. And then finally, I was able to convince Jack of the value, and he got excited about it too. And so he said, let's do it. So a few years ago, we went down the path where we really have rolled out all this. And so it's this great book. It's a website tied to it where we offer multimedia content, and all for the price of a book. And it's been a thrilling ride and opportunity to help other people.
Well, how did you put all this information of thinking the way you do about, forgiving yourself and the meditation? How did you put all that together? What was your source of information to put it together initially?
My favorite part about all this was it was feedback from the customers. So that was, I had my ideas, right? I mean, I did a lot of research and I practiced a lot of stuff, and I knew what worked for me. And, my mom's a therapist, my dad's a psychologist, and I certainly use
yes, I know. Now I get your fount of knowledge. I understand.
The natural progression to this coming out.
It is. It's funny because I'm this analytical person with this total love for personal growth and change because I love data too. So I love getting feedback. I mean, I love it and I hate it because it's hard sometimes. But so I would get all this feedback and say, what do you like? What didn't? Where did that work well there? Did that not work well there? And eventually, this was years and years. And then when Jack came on board, we shifted things more around. And he's like 10 times more what I am with feedback-driven content because he's spoken to 1 million people in person, and a lot of those are people that he's helping facilitate change. And so he actually he will not teach anything that hasn't. If it doesn't work at all for him, he won't do it from the stage usually ever, just because it doesn't feel right. But if he doesn't get results for the people in the audience, he just won't use it. And so and I was using mostly stuff he had already gotten feedback to, and then we added some things like tapping, which is really cool, and some other stuff. And we moved some things around based off of his experience, and so it evolved over the course of those 8 years. And the format, it kind of feels it feels almost magical to me. But once again, it was through a lot of work and feedback and effort.
It is such an amazing book. To get your hands on this, it comes out January 19th. Is that right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, January 19th. And then right now, up until the 19th, if you go to T as in the 30, D as in day, so T30D.com, Jack's giving away his great 30-day audio program based off the success principles, and that's what he was just on Oprah Winfrey for last month, which was great. So that's a free offer you get if you use the pre-sales page there. But if you can get it for any retailer, so very exciting stuff.
The book is set up like a devotional almost. I mean, you go through day 1, you attack that problem, you go through day 2. Could you? One of the first questions I have for you is, how do you identify the real reason for your drinking? Say you're the person drinking, and create a vision of your new sober self.
Question.
How do you do that?
Let me address the one thing you said first. I think is really important, which is the day 1, day 2, and when I was struggling, when I was going through this process, I just wanted someone to say, do this, and then this, and then this. It's already hard enough, and you're already struggling enough.
Like a personal trainer,
So I was just about to say, this is such a perfect segue, and I'll come back to the better question in a second. You go look in any bookstore, starting maybe 10, 20 years ago, in the fitness and exercise, and you find book after book after book, and guess what they all have the same thing in common. They talk your language. They think about, you reading, you're like, oh my God, that gets me excited, and I want to do that. And it's laid out perfectly, and it's laid out easily, and I know how to follow it. And sure, the 12 steps are 12 steps, but it's in person, very different, and if you go to meetings, it's very different. They don't have that. There's not that. That didn't exist from everywhere I looked when I was trying to get sober, and even currently. There's not real books that really kind of say, here, just follow this. A lot of books are really good content, but it's kind of like, I always call it like they kind of vomit that information onto you, and it's like do as you please, and it's just hard enough
You're
already.
Right.
And that's why we found this format to be almost, just magical in a sense of where they can just follow it and do it. And so what you're talking about with the
what started
the content,
it, your reasons.
The question was based off of like forgiveness solution, and I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
No, okay. How do you identify if you have a drinking problem, and how do you create a vision for a new person, new self? How do you do that?
Great. So the identifying yourself with a drinking problem, I often do a simple. Yeah, you can talk to people. Most people, if you can help them get honest, they'll know. There's a couple things that you can do. Is one is kind of a 30-day test and see how you really respond by staying sober 30 days.
Okay.
Do you avoid everything and count, the minutes until day 31 to drink, or, is it easy? And the other thing we do on day one, if you have the program, is day one we take you through a guided visualization, which is incredibly powerful. And what it does is it takes you using a proven process, takes you 5 years into the future, into both versions of what yourself would be if you drank and if you didn't drink. And when you do that, when you actually get someone to look at themselves in the future, it's very hard for them to let that denial exist in the future version of themselves. It's really interesting. And so that's where you can really get power and value to see, what to get them to see what role it's playing and how negative it is. Also, it allows you to set some important connection points to pain and pleasure. And so, because that's really the ultimate goal, is to attach more pain to drinking and more pleasure to sobriety. And that's kind of based off the pleasure principle of, Sigmund Freud. And then the other question is getting to the root of your drinking, right? That's a challenge, and it comes about in a variety of different ways. There are certain days that we really do explore and go deeper and use some of the guided imagery. One of the most valuable things that is so simple and yet so profound is journaling. And we tell people that you have to journal, have to let go of any issues you have, and journal every day, because there's so much content we give you, and we ask you to go through exercises that you need to write down what you experience, and you need to also write down other feelings that are going on. I mean, I still have my journal from early sobriety, and it's amazing some of the stuff and how much I've changed. And so that's a critical thing, because often what will happen by the time you hit week 1 or week 2, there's going to be some content that really strikes a chord. You will then continue to open up a little more through journaling and through the work we're doing, and then all of a sudden one of those things that you may have blocked out from your past will come up based off of the content for that day, a story someone told, someone's success story in the book. It can come up for a variety of ways, and using the techniques we teach, we help you cure from that in some ways, or help you heal from that, I guess would be the best way to word it. And that's the most important thing. But sometimes it's just self-awareness, right? If you have the awareness that is there still and holding you back, you can do something with it. Most of the time we've gotten so life is hard enough already, we'll push some of those away, and we don't want to see it, hear, or feel it, and unfortunately it still affects us.
Well, tell us a little bit about, if you're one of those people that think the only way people are going to like me at a party or a social situation is I just don't talk to people, and the only way I'm going to open up is by drinking quite a bit, and then I'm the life of the party and everybody loves me. How do you overcome the fear of that? That it's wrong to think that you can be a good person and a person that could talk to others without alcohol. But if you have that, you believe you need that crutch. How do you overcome that fear?
Very important, right? And so it's a process. There's a lot of process. So early in sobriety, we give people like the top 11 ways you can use to get out of drinking at a party and not feel judged. And early on, I was very much about that. I was like little white lies because I was too embarrassed to say I don't drink, or I have a problem. Of course, I didn't want to say that.
Right.
And so we a couple things. First of all, is that we tell people to really pay attention actually when you start going to parties and not drink, because what is ironic is that we've often created this reality that is not real, especially with problem drinkers. Like I was shocked when I really looked at how much other people drank, and I kind of just said, I'm going to pay attention. How many people didn't drink more than 1 or 2 drinks, and I had convinced myself that everyone was drinking like 4 or 5 and 6 and whatever. It was just a story I told myself to rationalize my own behavior. Now, depending on the audience you hang out with, things like that, it will vary. But as you come more into your own, the idea behind it is we give people the tools to avoid it early on, and then what's amazing is you come into your own, you start seeing the results of the work you're doing, you start becoming more authentic, you start living your core values. People that are drinking excessively often will make decisions that are the opposite of their core values, and they'll just not like themselves. and then it'll be a vicious loop of drinking to avoid it.
Right.
But when you finally get in touch with all of that, like we help you do, you start seeing things in such a different perspective that your confidence and your ability and your confidence and your demeanor around it all is almost contagious in a positive way, and people don't question it because they see a certain energy around you, and that's what's interesting. That shift that happens, and you don't care anymore because you have so many benefits now that you didn't have before in your life, and that's another powerful thing.
So we have Dave Andrews on the line today. He's our guest and one of the co-authors of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution. If you have a question that you'd like to ask Dave and you want to be anonymous or you want to be on the line, we have the phone numbers. When we come back after the break, Dave, we're going to try to go to a break here without Dr. Tobler on the boards. We're going to see if you can give us any pointers. So not necessarily those of us going to parties and not drinking, but what about that routine? We come home from work, we sit down, we grab the remote control, we grab a beer, we sit in the recliner, and we spend the night drinking a six-pack. Or we come home, we clean up, and we go straight to the local bar, pub, whatever. And that's been our routine since our divorce. That's been our routine since we turned 21. That's been our routine since our kids left home.
Yes.
That's been our routine since I lost my job. Whatever it is, how do we break that cycle of routine because we drink because it's routine?
Great. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that.
1-800-748-7875 and 660-465-7225. We invite your calls.
Back after the break. Okay, and we're back with Dave Andrews. He is the co-author of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution. And before we went to the break, we certainly threw out our phone numbers if people have a question.
1-800-748-7875 and 660-465-7225.
Thank you, Dr. Helene. And our question is routine. It's routine to get home, kick our feet up in the recliner and grab a beer. It's routine, for all of those other things that make us drink. So what's our solution, some tips that you can give our listening audience that's practical, Dave?
Well, so it is interesting, right? So, I mean, with addiction, there's not necessarily an easy answer. It's not like you just do this, because the problem is underlying you have a desire to drink to, in some ways, escape or to create a feeling that you're looking for. I mean, that's really ultimately what drinking is about, or anything we do is about, is to get a certain feeling, experience a certain feeling. So what you would need to do is say, okay, what feeling do you want to experience? And then think about what ways could give you that feeling that are healthier. So what we do is, in one day later in the program, in day 27, we have 101 things you can do to thrive in sobriety, and have, and so we give people
some
help
ideas.
People brainstorm on things that maybe they've long since forgotten they want to do or really would enjoy. And that can be wonderful when you embrace those. But also in the program, where we help people identify strengths and values and other things, and as that all comes out, people often realize there are things that they're not doing that they used to do that made them really happy. We have an exercise where we take people back to when they were a child and what gave them just kind of this wonderful joy as a child, laughing and playing, possibly, that they've let go of today. In their adult life, they've gotten stuck in the routine you talk about, which is so common. And usually if you talk to people, they would say they're not real happy with it, but the same token, it's hard to change. And so one example, a tiny habit thing taught, which is really cool, is you can start attaching a new habit to an existing habit. So you have a routine that is in place, like going to the bathroom. You can do 5 push-ups every time you go to the bathroom. And there's been a lot of studies that show that if you attach a new habit you want to an existing habit, you have a really high probability of continuing it. Better yet, if you do it where it's really small first, so you do 1 push-up, and then you build on that later on, and you also congratulate yourself. You give yourself a positive reward. That can be really effective. So I could start the first week and do 1 push-up every time I go to the bathroom. Let's say I want to work out. That's one of them. And after I do it, I do the push-up, and I get up and I say, "Good job, Dave, great." And it sounds silly, but it actually works. And you actually feel a little better after. And then next week 2, maybe do 2 push-ups. But this can be done with anything. So, every time you want to go sit on the couch and watch TV, maybe you tell yourself you're going to do something first before it. Or every half hour you're going to set an alarm. Everyone's a little different, so knowing yourself and where you succeed and where you usually don't succeed is valuable feedback to understand what to implement with regard to that. For me, for example, with work, if I just it's better off if I couldn't even walk in the house, have have whatever I want in my car to go do something, and then I would be more likely to be successful.
Well, what about I'll say, I'm a woman, a mom that's been works full time. She comes home from work. She's got to take care of the kids. She works, gets her homework done and everything. And then her only time to chill out, and this could be alcohol or food, it doesn't matter. Her only time to chill out, and the only thing she can think of as a reward is drinking or eating late at night. I've heard both. She still has to do the homework with the kids. How do you get her to rethink things? Because she's got a long day that she's got to get through.
Yeah, and so with mothers, I mean, that's a great example and story because, I mean, my wife is amazing. I'm a big fan of all those wonderful super moms out there that seem to be able to do it all. And the reality is drinking with moms has increased, drinking with women has increased dramatically. And unfortunately, you might know this as well, doctor, but that the studies show that it's actually more dangerous for women drinking alcohol than men.
Yes.
There's been a lot more studies that have shown higher rates of cancer and things in women than
Correct.
men, and breast cancer, of course, being one of those. So it is important to relax. So the reality is that a couple things I share with people. One is sometimes people don't realize it, but they've created this rule in their head of once I drink that glass of wine, I now have permission to relax. That's my cue.
Okay.
That's my totem, whatever you want to call it, to be able to let. And the challenge is to find a way to be able to let go without using that wine. And it's not that hard. Part of it's just sometimes permission. Like, I will give myself permission. Sometimes I'll be so simple as, like, I'm going to the movie. What do I want to accomplish? I want to just enjoy this movie. I don't want to think about a thing about work. I want to relax. And that's sometimes as simple as that. Like, okay, I just finished an amazing day. What do I want to accomplish now? I want to sit down in front of the TV. I want to let go of everything.
Yes.
And I want to do it without drinking wine. And I want to do it and really enjoy the experience and feel connected. But there are other ways you can do some of the same things without alcohol. You can take a bath, and you can do other things that might really make you feel good and appreciate yourself and really celebrate yourself and love yourself, because that's a critical part of life.
Okay.
So that's kind of an answer. There's a lot of other answers and possibilities of ways you can bring that in, but it is a challenge. And the reality is, if you really look at it, and this is what I do when I coach people, if you really look at what you get from that wine at the end of the day, every day, in the short term versus the long-term cost, which could be breast cancer and other forms of health and other issues, those health issues are going to be far more painful in the future than any short-term little gain you get from the relaxation that you could get otherwise in that moment.
It's not just that. There are calories in wine. You're heavier. You're not as happy when you wake up in the morning. Tell us a little bit about the willpower illusion, that, I should have willpower. I should be able to not drink. What is that all about? How can you hold yourself back? Mr. Andrews?
I did not make any of that
I'm sorry.
out. You're still talking.
Tell us the danger of the willpower illusion. You're going to overcome drinking by having willpower, doggone it.
And I'm going to overcome my sugar addiction because of willpower.
And so, I'm sorry. I can hear you perfectly. I can't hear Dr. Elaine hardly at all. It's like a speakerphone in the distance or something.
Doggone it. Here, but
the sugar addiction, I don't know if we were talking about that. Sugar addiction is obviously sugar, and what is alcohol? Fermented sugar. So it's clearly the same issue, right? I mean, it's we tell people when they get sober they have to really quit two addictions in some ways in the long term, and that's the alcohol addiction and the addiction to sugar. But and willpower is an illusion, right? I think that's
what I said. Yes, a willpower illusion.
I tell people all the time, willpower is kind of like you get in a boat and there's an autopilot one direction, and you can turn it to go the other way because you want to go the other way, and you can hold on to that steering wheel for only so long before it will, before you have to let go, or you fall asleep or something or whatever, and then you're going to go back to where you automatically go back to. So willpower is this really weird thing with addiction where it actually almost hurts you more than helps you, because people that have strong willpower often can deny they have a problem, and they also can willpower their way through a week, 2 weeks, or 30 days of sobriety,
right?
Purely white-knuckling it and really not doing any of the work they need, and still really being the same person that wants to drink and needs to drink.
Dave, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, great. Now you can hear me better. Okay, I turned the thing up. I turned the mic up pretty big.
Okay.
How do you harness? How do you harness the power of visualization to have success? How do you harness?
Say that again. How do you
harness the power, the incredible power of visualization to have success.
Oh, I mean, I love that. So visualization, I mean, there's so many great ways, and I love to, so people sometimes hear visualization and they turn off. They're like, that's hokey or whatever, and I always like to come back to what happens, right? I mean, the real science behind it, because I'm kind of a science guy. I mean, I'm a touchy-feely person, but I'm also very much a science analytical person. And, so when you visualize, when you set goals, when you do things like that, what you're doing is you're activating your reticular activating system and basically telling it where you want your focus to be. So, we have millions of things going on around us at any given moment. And so when you visualize, when you set goals, when you do things like that, you are saying, I want to see these things. You're telling yourself, and that's the power of it, right? It's not complicated. It's not some woo-woo thing. It's simply that, you want to go buy a car and you're looking for cars. You see all these cars on the road. Before, you just filtered all that data out. You didn't even think about it, And that's the power of visualization is when you use it, you're able to see what you want to see. And then visualization also, we're image-driven people. So let's take an extreme example of phobias. If you have a phobia, if you talk to anyone that has a phobia, you say, hey, what are you thinking right now? What are you seeing? And, okay, they have a fear of flying. So often they'll say, well, I'm seeing the plane crash and people, dying and all these horrible images. And sometimes it's as simple as change the images in your head, change your focus onto new images to replace those images. So like the vision board, vision board, that's hokey. Well, maybe, unless you think about what you're doing, a vision board is you're focusing on what you want,
right,
instead of what you resist. What you resist persists, as Carl Jung says. So a vision board, when you're putting pictures in your head of what you want, there's not as much room for pictures in your head of what you don't want.
Oh, okay.
When you focus on what you want, there's less room for you to think about what you don't want. So I always give the analogy, when you walk into a dark house, what do you do to bring light into a dark house? You don't push away the darkness. You don't push away your addiction. You turn on the lights to the positive things, and that will, in essence, drown out the negative things there. And so that's one of the many ways you teach. And so visualization is a great tool, an amazing tool, and one of my favorites. And I use that probably more than anything else. And with vision boards and other stuff, because I just like it. It makes me feel good. And so that's how you harness it. And then we have some guided techniques we take people through to help them get better at it and to practice doing it. And that's always fun.
Well, Dave, I hope you can hold on with us. We have a lot more we'd like to talk about. This is Dave Andrews, nationally acclaimed sobriety coach. And please call in 1-800-748-7875 or 660-465-7225 about a friend. It doesn't have to be about you if you have any questions. And we are back with Dave Andrews, co-author with Jack Canfield of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution.
But it's kind of cute. Oh, when you smile at me, you know exactly what you do. Baby, don't
and I can hear you that time,
okay.
At least a little better than before.
Great, good. I changed headphones. I have a question about, we've talked about the person that has an alcohol problem. Let's talk about the people that have relationships that need to be healed. How do you heal a relationship when someone has a drinking problem? Or you're the person that knows that you have a problem and you know your relationships are not doing well. And you might even have people that are bringing you down. How do you overcome that?
Oh, I mean, you bring up some important questions, and they're some of the hardest things to do to see loved ones struggle. And, I put my wife through a lot, and I put my daughters through a little bit. They're 5 and 2. My 5-year-old, though, one of the life-changing events I had is my wife's a child therapist, and yes, I have a therapist wife, therapist mom, psychologist dad.
Whoa!
Holy cow! What are family dinners like at your house?
Oh my God, it's so much fun.
So
and better yet, I just went to therapy with my dad recently. So I do practice what I preach, and we had to work through some issues. So it was really enjoyable Thanksgiving. We went to Thanksgiving dinner, and then the next day we went to family therapy, quite literally. But it is. I'm passionate about that, and in my sobriety, I can do that. I couldn't do it then before because it was too hard and too painful, and I didn't want to hear people tell me what I already knew. And so, my wife, she's the most loving woman in the world, and she's been amazing and supportive. But I'd always told myself, thankfully, that if I thought my marriage was going to end, I would. If I thought it was going to end because of drinking, then I would not let that happen. For whatever reason, that's a standard. That's a rule I made up many, many years ago before I quit drinking. And things changed all of a sudden. She started going to Al-Anon, and she started going to a therapist, and she started kind of distancing herself. And, and as you find out, the hardest thing to do, it's so hard, it's conceptually easy to understand, it feels impossible to practice, which is this not being codependent mode where you're not almost enabling. And I know anyone sitting there's like, how can you say I'm enabling them to drink? Well, you're not intentionally, but what's going on is you might be feeding into their behavior and helping them get what they need. So we all need a certain feeling. We all seek certain feelings and experiences. And so one example of a family dynamic is someone drinks, and they drink and they may act out, maybe they do whatever the case might be, and then you give them your energy. You say, please don't drink, I love you, don't do this, or maybe you say, I hate you. Either way, that person might be getting energy from you that they need.
Okay.
So I, for example, am very driven by significance, and I've worked on that for many, many years. But if I wasn't getting significance in a positive way, I'd be happy to get you mad at me, so I'd get it in a negative way.
Oh, okay.
And so
you think
that's ways that we feed into that as a family dynamic. So when my wife started checking out, I didn't get anything. I was like, all I got was like, what?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that at the time. And that's the beauty of it. I just knew that things were different. And and I was very mad at Al-Anon, of course. But I knew I had to change anyway. And so it can be powerful, and that's why people say why advice you hear given a lot is you gotta pull away a little bit, and because in essence you might actually be doing them a favor.
So you're saying it's more important that they not, you got a drinking problem. What is your problem? Or poor honey, you've got a drinking problem. Here's some more to drink. It's more important that you see your spouse or your loved one pull away from you and give you time. Is that more important? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's a two-stage approach. One is you want them to know that how you feel, and you want to have a heart-to-heart and be open and honest and loving and say, this is how you feel. You might even want to tell them how you're going to proceed and say, I'm just so you know, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to be backing away. I can't live this type of life, and I love you, and I want to be there for you, but I'm not going to be, I'm not going to play into that same role that you're playing. And so I think that's a very positive, healthy approach, and it lets that person know, and then you have to act on it and see what their experience is with that. But the bottom line is, if you're seeing them damage their life in significant ways, and you know they're headed down a dark path, you need to do whatever it takes to help get them to the other side. And guess what? It's almost never begging, pleading, things like that. Now, interventions can work, and so that certainly is a possibility, and I've seen those work. And people that are talented, at helping get someone to see what's going on, that can work as well. I mean, I got to do an intervention with a friend's friend once, and it was a fun session, but it was interesting because he was throwing every excuse in the book at me, and I got him to get real, and then when he got real, we were able to get some work done. He's been sober ever since. He never even relapsed.
Wow.
That was over a year ago, and those kind of things do work sometimes, but it doesn't work when a family member, and you think about it from your perspective. When's the last time a family member attacked you, and or you felt attacked that it prompted change?
Right.
Maybe it did, but often it doesn't work real well.
So I want to go back to what you just said, Dave. You made him get real. So a family member couldn't make him get real, a child, a coworker, but as a friend, you just said you made him get real. What practical tip that can you give our listening audience? What's the psychology or psychiatry behind what you did to make him get real?
Well, I'm trained in strategic intervention, so I mean that gives me a little bit of an advantage there. Is that's what that's about? It's about a way of interacting to help facilitate change. But one of the most powerful things with an alcoholic, and this is why one of the reasons Alcoholics Anonymous has is so popular, and a program I do love in a lot of ways, is the shared alcohol experience. Because I'm an alcoholic, and because I know the games that I played when I was doing that,
okay.
I can call them on it. I can call them on it like a family member can't.
Oh, I got it.
And that's the difference. A family member, they call them on it, they feel attacked, they feel whatever.
Okay.
Me, I can play that role, and I can jump back and forth. I can play the role of attacker, so to say, in a nice way, and say, that's crap, you're lying, it should give me evidence, and then I can say, look, I get it. I was there, okay?
Yeah.
You don't take my critiquing you as putting you down, because I lived your life, and I can tell you which two ways you can go, because I've went both of them. And that's the difference you can't have as a family member. If you have addiction as a family member, you can do that a little bit, but we still put up walls because of the dynamics we have for family dynamics, and I mean, I saw that again with my dad going to therapy recently with him. There are things that, it was funny. He never told me he appreciated me as a parent to my children, and I realized that really had hurt me. I didn't realize that until then, so I had started pulling away. And so we have these family dynamics that go on that add complexity already to a very challenging situation.
Would it be relatively safe to say that in many of the very successful rehab centers around the country, many of the rehab counselors that are there are people like you that have been in those shoes, and that's why they can relate to the residents and the patients that are in the rehab facility, because they themselves have successfully recovered and been dry or been clean or whatever it is for a number of years. So they are boots on the ground kind of people that have been in those shoes, and that's what makes many of these rehab facilities successful. Is that a safe statement?
Absolutely fair. Yeah, absolutely fair. So yes, for part of that answer, and most of them are in recovery, and that's fantastic, and it's a connection that's great. Mm-hmm. They do say 80 to 90% of recovery rehabs are based off of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
And that one I struggle a little bit with. I mean, I love Alcoholics Anonymous, but there are things that even Bill himself would teach differently because he learned a lot over the course of his evolution from founding the program to moving on. And for example, in the idea that we go into a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in 10-year sobriety, call yourself an alcoholic and say, I am an alcoholic. Psychologists know the importance of identity. And if you're still identifying yourself as an alcoholic and you're calling yourself an alcoholic and you're saying, I am, very powerful words, I am an alcoholic, you subconsciously want to recreate and become that identity. And so that's an example. For one example, I say go to meetings because they can be great, but once again, say maybe I'm thriving in sobriety in your head after you say that. Another example would be like the drunk-a-log. You go to a lot of AA meetings, and it's one drunk story after another. And yeah, they're not always happy endings. A lot of them aren't. But once again, we know how the mind works, and we know that if we keep focusing on what we don't want, guess what we get? What we don't want. And if we focus on what we do want, we get what we do want. And or at least the odds increase dramatically for that. So there are things with that the way I recommend, like using AA, but use it with certain parameters, like really check in with yourself after a meeting and say, is this a meeting where I really makes me feel good? And even someone on another radio show said, they went into an AA meeting, which I've seen this all the time, and you looked around, it was cigarette smoke, donuts, coffee, and
another addiction.
Everyone was overweight, and people don't look at one meeting I remember going into, and this is the early part I think, I'm like, these cannot be my peers, because if these are my peers, I just don't even want to live the rest of my life. And I don't mean that to be mean.
You're right.
I'm a passionate person. I want to be happy, healthy. I want to look in the mirror and see a sparkle in my eyes and feel good about who I am. And and so it's that there's some things with AA, but at the same token, it is a miracle. It is absolutely a miracle. You can be in any semi-big city around the world and get help for no cost. It is, really is.
Okay, say that we need to ask you one more question. I have to ask him one more question. We'll get that on the way back. Mr. Dave Andrews, the co-author of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution, and we'll be back soon.
We're back with Dave Andrews, co-author of the 30-Day Sobriety Solution. One more question, Dr. Helene, and I think it's a really valuable question with a really valuable answer for our listening audience.
Well, Ms. Dave Andrews, I have a question that's, if you've gone through all of this, if you've gone through your 30-day sobriety solution, you were an alcoholic, and I guess, tell me if I'm wrong, you're considered an alcoholic the rest of your life. Is that right? If you're an alcoholic once, is that right?
I don't like that. I don't know how that. The analogy I give is if you're diabetic because you're out of weight and eat poorly, are you diabetic for the rest of your life, even though you're no longer testing for it?
Okay, so my question to you is, you've gone through all this. Can you ever be a, quote, normal drinker again? And what is a normal drinker again? That's another question.
Yeah, and the short answer is yes. The long answer is it's a very small percentage of people that really can do it. And if you do the work and that you should be doing, and you have the results that you expect and want, you're not going to want to drink anyway. So it'll be a mute question. But yes, we have had people that done it, and I was challenged on that at first. The first version of the program, I didn't say that, and I was challenged on it. I went to my graduates, and I found there were examples of people that I knew that were really doing it. And more importantly, I realized the biggest thing, which is we have this ability. We've created this divide in recovery world versus the people that are struggling, and that is to get sober. You can never drink again for the rest of your life, and that scares people to no end. That's my biggest fear, and that held me back more than anything else when I was drinking was that this idea that if I go to Alcoholics Anonymous or something else, I can never drink again the rest of my life, which to me meant an existence of unhappiness. And so when you say you can cut back, become a normal drinker again, which is still true, even though it's a small percentage, you open up the door for them to come through it a lot sooner.
Okay. It's like people. My thing is, I was overweight as a kid, and I help people lose weight, and to tell them they can never have chocolate cake again would be just forget it. I might as well eat myself to death. Devastating.
It's impossible.
It's the same idea that you have to have some silver something at the end where you say, I'm going to be, quote, normal again. And drinking normally, socially, would be a good thing for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially because we're reaching people earlier on in their addictive behavior, that is even more possible. And that's our goal, is that we're really addressing a population that is pretty much ignored in a lot of ways until further down the path.
And Dave, we need to wrap up the show here. Sober for nearly 10 years, is that right for you?
Eight and a half years. So
wow, good for you.
That's awesome.
Yep.
You can speak the language to our listening audience. You can sure speak that language. Go ahead, Doctor.
Oh, good.
Well, Dave Andrews, we really thank you for joining us today. You're a fountain of knowledge, and to be honest, before I looked at your book, I didn't know, and I think you can do it by going through this 30-day sobriety solution day by day, journaling, doing what they say. This is healthy lifestyles. It's also nutrition, meditation, an act of gratitude. All of it together is even if you don't have an alcoholic problem, you're gonna have a healthier life by reading it. So we can't thank you enough for this, and I can't recommend this enough to our audience. Again, available on January 19th. And what was that website again?
So you can buy it ahead of time right now. It's T as in the 30, D as in day, T30D.com. And with that, you'll get some great bonus packages. And thank you so much for the compliments.
Thank
you. It can be used for any behavior. The wonderful thing that we see time and again is people quit, they change their drinking, and then they use the exact same things we're teaching because they're taught in other areas to be more successful in every other area of their life. And that's the beauty of it, is that you're learning stuff that will work in every area of your life. And that's wonderful. And so, thank you so much for the compliments, and it was an honor to be on your show.
You're a great coach. Thanks, and Happy
Dave.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, take care.
Wow, Dr. Helene, you hit it out of the park finding that guest today.
Oh, gosh. There's so many people that suffer. When I was in St. Louis, a lot of families, there was they're probably not listening. The family not too far down the street, the family suffered and was broken up from one of the members having a problem. And
it's prevalent.
It's
prevalent all over America.
It's prevalent all over America, and it's
in other countries.
Yes, and what's so wonderful about this is, and it is hard for some people to go to, just like Weight Watchers, showing up at Weight Watchers and being public about your weight. Sure. Showing up at Al-Anon is great for some people, but some people it doesn't speak to them. And they're never going to address it. And by actually going through this plan and at least trying it in your own home, if you're not one of those people, you're going to give somebody an out. It's going to help someone. Yes. And that's amazing. Yes. Not just someone, it's going to help a family.
We want to make sure that Dr. Tobler will be back with us
next
week. Those babies never know when they're going to arrive. And so he is tied up with a special delivery right now. We do want to remind folks, since it is the new year, our clinic manager and our admission staff reminded us to remind you to bring in your insurance cards now when you come to the hospital and the clinic at the beginning of the new year, especially if you have a new insurance. But we want you to bring your insurance cards, and thanks for joining us this morning on HealthyU. And we will be back next week. Dr. Tobler on the controls and not Lisa Kinder, because this is a little foreign ground for me. But thank you for doing the board, Elisa. You bet. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Next